Xbox Live Arcade, PlayStation Network, the Virtual Console, which is the best platform for small downloadable games?
I'll let the guys who work for Sony answer that.
Plus, what can these smaller games teach the rest of the industry?
All this talk of like, you can't be innovative in big games, it's like, I think that's a cop-out.
The lesson begins right now as the bonus round concludes. Hey, welcome back to the bonus round. We're talking about small downloadable arcade games on the PlayStation Network, Xbox 360 Arcade, and the Wii Virtual Console. And joining me, we've got Josh from Naked Sky Entertainment, David Jaffe from Sony, of course, and Kelly Santiago from That Game Company. Now, one thing I want to ask you about is the idea of smaller bite-sized media. Wired recently had a cover about the idea that, everyone wants things in smaller chunks because we're so busy, we don't have time to play, 30, 40-hour epic games. We want, smaller, simpler games. I think that's absolutely the case. Do you guys feel that as well? Is that part of the appeal of these small downloadable games, that you can get a fix for 15 or 20 minutes and that's great and you feel fulfilled?
That's totally the appeal, and we learned with RoboBlitz that that's what people want, and we made a game that's an hour-sized chunk, and even that's too much. I mean, we're getting feedback from that. So you're totally right. People are getting faster.
Feel like I'm pissed off that it's like I can't finish it in 20 minutes.
Well, yeah, they're like, oh, there's a learning curve. I want to get my fix and go on. It's like a music video.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, that was one of the things that. One of the reasons that That Game Company went into the smaller game forum was because seeing gamers are growing older and we don't have time to play these longer games. At the same time, we want that emotional experience. We miss the sort of the stories and the emotions. So creating games that are smaller and yet put you right into the emotion, I think is where it's at. Right. And certainly the elastic play experience where you can play for a little bit, but then also you could sit and play for a long time. I mean, that's Flow and Cloud, which Joe and I both worked on.
Right. I mean, Dave, do you feel replayability, is that a real important part of these smaller games? You can keep, playing again and again and again, and if you could download something and pay it for 30 minutes, you're going to be upset if it's like a straight narrative.
No, I think honestly for me, I mean, the downloadable space is open for any kind of experience, and I'm sure it can take a one-time playthrough of a great narrative as much as it can take sort of a more pure play game like Calling All Cars or Flow. I think it has more to do with the fact that for me, it's like Kelly's saying, I don't have time to play these 40-hour games anymore. I don't have interest in playing them anymore. I don't know if it's that I've grown up or my life has taken me in a different direction. It's just not what I want to be doing. And so, as a game player, not as a game maker. But the other thing is, I think you look back to the games that a lot of us grew up with, the arcade games, and it was instant. A lot of it had to be. You put your quarter in, they had to keep you and get your next quarter. But I love the smaller games because you're immediately into the gameplay. You're immediately into the thing that the game is what a game does well. Whereas a lot of the bigger games these days, you got to sit through the cutscenes, you got to sit through a tutorial, and it really is a commitment on the part of the gamer to sort of get into the meat of what that experience is. And there are gamers out there that are okay with that. But a lot of gamers more and more are starting to say, you know what? I want to play a game. I don't want to sit through all this. Just entertain me. And I think that's our job, is to provide that entertainment. And that's why I think the small space is really exciting.
Now, we've got a bunch of platforms in the small space. What's your take on PlayStation Network versus Xbox Live Arcade? What do you guys think is the better way to get these small games? Who has the better library? What do you think, Josh?
I'll let the guys who work for Sony answer that.
Well, but you guys, obviously, you guys are a little biased about that.
I think, let me just say quickly, I think it's clear Xbox 360 right now has way more games on it.
Yeah, as far as catalog.
Of course.
As would be expected, though, that it was out a year earlier.
Exactly. I think Sony does a better job right now of really promoting experimental, different kinds of unique experiences, not as well as sort of more compelling arcade experience as well. So I think you get a bigger breadth on the PSN, and you will continue to. But I think right now there's simply more to choose from on the 360 because it's been out longer. I don't know if that's been your...
I mean, I would echo the exact same sentiment as far as what's available and what it seems like Sony is interested in doing with the PlayStation Network. At the same time, I mean, I don't have experience in developing for Xbox, so I'm certainly interested in your perspective on that. But there's XNA, and it's really opened up its console to everyone in a way that PlayStation has yet to do. And I think they will want to do that in the future.
So what's your take? I mean, you think is Xbox Live, is that that's the place to be? I mean, you're making big money. This is like, this is the ultimate platform, or?
Well, it's definitely a great platform because it's easy to develop for.
Right.
And Sony, if you send us some dev kits, then we can say your platform's awesome too.
He doesn't want to lose his dev kits, so he can't really answer the question. Gotta have big walrus balls like David Jeff. Right? That's what it takes.
After I've made God of War, then my balls will be huge.
I'll send you mine.
Now, is there a risk, though, with these smaller downloadable games that the bigger games become less groundbreaking because, these smaller experiences are more appealing to the more creative people? Everyone kind of, ventures over to this stuff, and then these larger games that everyone loves, there's less innovation and whatnot because everyone's busy innovating on these smaller games?
So I haven't found, working for Sony, it's obviously an isolated experience, but I haven't, all this talk of like, you can't be innovative in big games, it's like, I think that's a cop-out. I think the reality of it is Sony has never come to us and said, we can't do that, that's too innovative, whether it's a $30 million product or a sub-million dollar product. It's just the fact that you've got to be innovative and you've got to be engaging enough to sort of make it worth the money. And so certainly we would never put out a game for $60 retail like Facade, on a Blu-ray disc. But, it doesn't mean that there's no place for that, in the Sony catalog. And so I think, we've always done innovative $60, $50 games, and I don't see any reason that wouldn't continue. I think that's always been a mandate for the developers at Sony to push all kinds of envelopes, technologically design, and just sort of...
You can see it almost like, Pixar, they do like their short films, that they really try and do, super innovative things, try out new technologies, and then eventually those get adopted in sort of the bigger feature films. So almost use sort of the small downloadable games as a test bed for a little, gameplay ideas. I mean, that could happen, right? I mean, you could test out something in a smaller downloadable game that could then, move into God of War 3 or something.
It could happen. Specifically, it could happen. But again, the guys making God of War 3 are going to be trying to be innovative anyway.
Right.
So if they want to do something really cool, they're going to try to do something really cool. So
but you think it would take some of the pressure off to do it on a small game first?
There is no pressure.
Really?
There's a pressure of shipping. There's a pressure of the big team.
Yeah, I know. But
like $25 million.
The pressure is no.
More.
If I have an idea, or Corey, or anybody on that team has an idea of do something really innovative, that's what Sony wants. So there's pressure not to be innovative. There's pressure to, like, God, I hope I come up with something that's going to be really cool to get people talking. That's where the pressure comes from. And that pressure applies to any budget you're working with. You always have to do things that are exciting to get players talking. We don't go into it going, we're spending $30 million, let's toe the line. We're like, no, we're spending $30 million. We know that cool new stuff sells, and so we better come up with some cool new stuff. So the way you're describing it makes it sound like, we go to the salt mines and it's a $30 million game and it's just like, head down, do the same thing we did last time, don't be creative. That's not my experience. I don't know about you guys, but that's not my experience working for a big game company at all, like Sony.
Well, I would say Sony is pretty unique in that way, though.
It could be, yeah.
And all Josh wants, you just want your dev kits, right? You hear these guys talk about it.
That's right.
RoboBlitz coming soon. All right, guys. Well, thanks for joining us for the bonus round. It's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time in the bonus round.